Welcome to Voices of Global Freedom Radio. We are broadcasting from San Diego, California, Saturday, May the 9th, 2015. This is Backpack and our co-host Yoda. We bring our patriotic conservative audience news you can use and actionable tactics, methods, and strategies to survive and thrive in these dangerous, troubled times. 646-652-4667. We are proud to be syndicated with the popular radio networks, the Spark Radio Network, K98 Talk, Leading Edge Radio Network, RadioactiveBroadcasting.com, The Pundit Press, and we are among the top 5 news picks on Top Talk Radio, along with Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, and other household names. Yoda, how are you doing today?
I am doing great, brother. What a week. What a week we've got to cover, huh?
Yeah.
Ice is tearing around, growing by the minute. The administration now has our coppers under siege, and quite a week to report on with our analysis of the news our fine audience can use. We're standing by, audience, for a call-in from the venerable Major General Paul E. Vallely. He is the Paul E. Vallely. He's a soldier. He was a ranger who lead the way and a jump master and credentials that we just can't even believe. Anxious, eager here for the good general to call in. Don't know what he's got himself into today. He is a fast mover. He heads up Stand Up America. You need to look at that site, please, standupamerica.com. Meanwhile, until he calls in back, would you run our IQ disclosure of Islam like it is, please?
All right.
Audience, may we have your singular and undivided attention to the real Islam done by an apostate Islamic friend of ours based in Europe. There's a price on his head. This guy bet CARE and bet the Muslim Brotherhood $1 million that they couldn't prove him wrong on a single thing he's written or a single word he said on air. He is quite a guy. So waiting for the good General Paul E. Vallely, U.S. Army retired, we are going to have our man IQ. We go by the name IQ. We're going to have him tell you about Islam. A lot going on.
Please forward a link to this video so that people may learn the basics of Islam. And please keep in mind that the term Islamophobia is an oxymoron, since having a phobia means having an irrational fear. Fearing Islam, which wants 80% of humanity enslaved or exterminated, is totally rational, and hence cannot possibly be called a phobia. This video is not limited to any one religion, but the following is true. The shoe bomber was a Muslim. The Beltway snipers were Muslims. The Fort Hood shooter was a Muslim. The underwear bomber was a Muslim. The USS Cole bombers were Muslims. The Madrid train bombers were Muslims. The Bali nightclub bombers were Muslims. The London subway bombers were Muslims. The Moscow theater attackers were Muslims. The Boston Marathon bombers were Muslims. The Pan Am Flight number 93 bombers were Muslims. The Air France Entebbe hijackers were Muslims. The Iranian embassy takeover was by Muslims. The Beirut U.S. Embassy bombers were Muslims. The Libyan U.S. Embassy attack was by Muslims. The Buenos Aires suicide bombers were Muslims. The Israeli Olympic team attackers were Muslims. The Kenyan U.S. Embassy bombers were Muslims. The Saudi Khobar Towers bombers were Muslims. The Beirut Marine Barracks bombers were Muslims. The Beshian Russian school attackers were Muslims. The First World Trade Center bombers were Muslims. The Bombay Mumbai India attackers were Muslims. The Achille Lauro cruise ship hijackers were Muslims. The Nairobi, Kenya shopping mall killers were Muslims. The September 11th, 2001 airline hijackers were Muslims. The Sydney, Australia Lint Cafe kidnapper was a Muslim. The Peshawar Pakistani school children killers were Muslims. Think of it. Hindus living with Jews, no problem. Baha'is living with Jews.
Yoda here interrupting. I've been in the counter-terrorist business since 1974, after the Munich Olympic massacre of Israeli Olympians. It comes out that I've traveled throughout Islam, from Morocco to Egypt, all over the Arabian Peninsula. I have come of the considered opinion you can't be a Muslim with a small m. It's unlike any other religion ever known to our race. It is about killing or recruiting infidels. That's us. That's Christians. That's Jews. That's everybody. You can be a weekend Catholic. You can take your mother to Easter services. You can be a little bit Presbyterian with a small p. You can't be a Muslim with a small m. It governs every minute of their life and every fiber of their being. It controls their finance, job, marriage. It is all about Sharia law and a caliphate. Going on now with ISIS in Iraq, and they're spreading their evil around the world. Sharia means abusing women. Sharia means killing Christians or Jews or anybody. So we'll go back to this stunning report by our man I.Q. Mazzulli, based in Europe with a price on his head. Right, Backpack?
Right.
Go, bro.
No problem. Jews living with atheists, no problem. Sikhs living with Hindus, no problem. Hindus living with Baha'is, no problem. Christians living with Jews, no problem. Jews living with Buddhists, no problem. Shintos living with atheists, no problem. Buddhists living with Sikhs, no problem. Baha'is living with Christians, no problem. Buddhists living with Shintos, no problem. Buddhists living with Hindus, no problem. Hindus living with Christians, only a rare problem. Atheists living with Buddhists, no problem. Confucians living with Hindus, no problem. Atheists living with Confucians, no problem. Muslims living with Jews, problem. Muslims living with Sikhs, problem. Muslims living with Hindus, problem. Muslims living with Baha'is, problem. Muslims living with Shintos, problem. Muslims living with Buddhists, problem. Muslims living with Christians, problem. Muslims living with Muslims, very big problem. So this led to, they're not happy in Gaza. They're not happy in Egypt. They're not happy in Libya. They're not happy in Iran. They're not happy.
I'm directing this to our intelligent liberal audience out there. You cannot capitulate, negotiate with Muslims. You can't. They are about jihad. Look at the last attack on Pamela Geller, who ran a private showing of cartoons in Garland, Texas. If we all weren't on Mars or hiding under a rock, it's been headlined since the incident. Our hats off to a 60-year-old reserve officer who smoked two bad guys that showed up allegedly from ISIS to kill everybody in active shoot in the place that Pamela Geller was exhibiting in. So our hats off. We salute that 60-year-old reserve copper who interdicted two of the bad bastards, killed them both. To our good liberal friends, you cannot negotiate, capitulate, appease jihadist Muslims. You just can't do that. So better find some spine out there to fight this evil. We can take them on now in Iraq and in Syria. Now they're in Yemen. Or we will, I'm concerned, and our insiders are concerned that we're going to see more incidents here now imminently. Here's a wrap-up, Backpack, of that good IQ piece. I love the piece.
Yeah, it's a great piece.
in Iraq. They're not happy in Yemen. They're not happy in Pakistan. They're not happy in Syria. They're not happy in Lebanon. They're not happy in Nigeria. They're not happy in Kenya. They're not happy in Sudan. They're not happy in Morocco. And they're not happy in Afghanistan. So, where are they happy? They're happy in Australia. They're happy in Belgium. They're happy in France. They're happy in Holland. They're happy in Italy. They're happy in Germany. They're happy in Spain. They're happy in Sweden. They're happy in Denmark. They're happy in the USA and Canada. They're happy in Norway and India. They're very happy in England. Loads of welfare benefits. They're happy in almost every country that is not Islamic. And who do they blame? Not Islam. Not their leadership. Not themselves. They blame the countries they are happy in. And they want to change the countries they're happy in to be like the countries they came from where they were unhappy. Islamic Jihad, an Islamic terror organization. ISIS, an Islamic terror organization. Al-Qaeda, an Islamic terror organization. Taliban, an Islamic terror organization. Boko Haram, an Islamic terror organization. Al-Nusra, an Islamic terror organization. Abu Sayyaf, an Islamic terror organization. Al-Badr, an Islamic terror organization. Muslim Brotherhood, an Islamic terror organization. Lashkar-e-Taiba, an Islamic terror organization. Ansaru, an Islamic terror organization. Jama'ah Islamiyah, an Islamic terror organization. Abdullah Azam Brigade, an Islamic terror organization. Al-Shabaab Somalia, an Islamic terror organization. And this is just scratching the surface on Islamic terrorism. There are more, lots more. Please forward a link to this video to help spread the word that virtually all terrorism today throughout the world is Islamic and risk being called a hate monger for telling the truth about Islamic hate mongers. Thank you from author IQ Al-Rasuli.
Wow, what a powerful piece that is, and it changes what we're hearing on mainstream media as far as what's really been going on with Islam over the last 30 years.
This week
well done, Beck. Well done. Where can our audience find that on our sister magazine, themagnifiedview.com? I think we're up on that referring, aren't we?
Yeah, there is an article we featured on magnifiedview.com concerning this. We also have a YouTube channel. If you Google YouTube and Voices of Global Freedom, you'll find a lot of other articles. We've been putting a lot of really groundbreaking shows on YouTube, which we're excited to also play in the upcoming episodes.
We're still waiting for the good General Major General Paul E. Belaley to call in. And while that, I want to tell you about Impact Analytics. Impact Analytics in Florida. I work closely with the president of that outfit. His name's Tim. Tim and I were in Beirut shortly following our embassy bombing and the Marine barracks bombing. Tim worked for a major letter agency. That's a cool way of saying one of the big three in the intelligence community. Heading up impactanalytics.com, Tim has something for everybody, including you out there, that have approximately 1,000 email addresses. Tim puts them all together from people like us and you, and this gives him a powerful bit of business for major advertisers. He publishes newsletters sent to your email, and with major Fortune 500, Fortune 100 advertisers, because he can go out to so many email addresses, yours and ours and others. So fast forwarding at the end of the month, he sends you a check with a lot of money. Anyway, look up Tim, please. Tell him Backpack and Yoda said to call impactanalytics.florida.com. I thank you.
Please go check out his other website, punchingbagpost.com, which is a consortium of the greatest conservative news from all around the world, and it's aggregated by audience trending. It has statistics of an audience index. It's a great website. for catching a lot of the great news out there. punchingbagpost.com.
We're concerned now, we, the MagnifiedViewMagazine.com, and the program you're kind enough to listen to, VoicesOfGlobalFreedom.com. Our editorial policy set by our editor-in-chief, Jana Rama, is now to address ISIS. Our insiders tell us an imminent terrorist attack on our shores here, and another attack. That's the Obama administration and his new Attorney General. What's her name back there?
Well, we're coming up with a new article called Loretta Lynching Law Enforcement.
I like Loretta Lynching. Second attack we're under now is the Obama, his administration, and his AG, Loretta Lynching, decimating our local police. This has happened in Nazi Germany, in communist Russia under Stalin, under Castro. What they do is federalize local police. Local police are your friends. These are the guys that and girls that teach your kids soccer. They live next door. They are literally risking their life daily. An astounding 50,000 officers, sworn officers, were assaulted last year. I think, Backpack, we're up to 136 dead this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing statistics. We do have a pre-recorded interview with Lieutenant Randy Sutton. He is the national spokesman for DefendingTheShield.org, American Council on Public Safety, and we can go ahead and play that.
We're about two things now under the direction of our founding editor-in-chief. We call her Jana Rama. And that is, we are combating the siege, the attack on our cops. They are really in it now, and what Lieutenant Randy Sutton, decorated for valor, years as a lieutenant in the Las Vegas Police Department. He won 5 firefights, gunfights. We're supporting him wholeheartedly. We are all in with his Defending the Shield organization. What's the other name of that back then?
American Council on Public Safety, and the website is defendingtheshield.org. Lieutenant Sutton has been out on numerous Fox News. He was on Fox and Friends a lot, and he has a great article published in the New York Post recently that's going viral.
We are all in with Randy. We recorded a show with him in 2 parts. It will give you a sense of what the Attorney General Justice Department is doing to your local coppers. These are the folks that respond to you when you're in trouble, not the Fed, nor would a federalized police unit, which Obama promised. He said twice, paraphrasing, that he's going to create a national domestic civilian security force, larger than the U.S. military. What the hell is that? That's designed to replace local coppers. He's running a $99 million facility in Georgia. It's called a MOUT, a military operation in urban terrain. It's a mock city. He's running armed DHS, Department of Homeland Security elements through there, training them in riot control. You saw the riot control in Baltimore. He's running them through there in riot control and incarceration of citizens who they don't like. His intention, in my opinion, is to replace local cops with those elements of DHS that he's training in those facilities. That is the way of Stalin. It's the way of Hitler, Castro, Mao, Toppa. Anyway, it was our pleasure and privilege to record a 2-part show with Randy. And here is the good Lieutenant Sutton.
Welcome
Welcome to Voices of Global Freedom Radio. We are broadcasting from San Diego, California. It is May the 4th, Monday. This is Backpack and our co-host Yoda. We bring our patriotic conservative audience news you can use and actionable tactics, methods, and strategies to survive and thrive in these dangerous, troubled times. We are proud to be syndicated with the popular radio networks, the Spark Radio Network, K98 Talk, Leading Edge Radio Network, RadioactiveBroadcasting.com, and soon to be on Pundit Press Network. We are among the top 5 news picks on Top Talk Radio, along with Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, and other household names. We are honored to be talking today with Lieutenant Randy Sutton, a 34-year veteran in Las Vegas, and he is the national spokesperson for American Council on Public Safety, defendingtheshield.org. Yoda, how are you doing today?
Doing great, brother. And for our new audience, Backpack and I operate on air publicly under our pseudonyms Yoda and Backpack. We are still active with major letter intel agencies and law enforcement, so we appear here under those pseudonyms because we don't want a front yard full of terrorists or cartels like that. We're especially honored today to have Lieutenant Sutton, as Backpack said, 34 years on the street in law enforcement. He's going to tell his story, but he was in Princeton, New Jersey, and as the real street dog cops do, he yearned for more activity, so he removed himself over to Las Vegas, where he has a unique career of decades. He was promoted to lieutenant. Many lieutenants sit around the station, they learn how to say no, and they move papers around. Our lieutenant is one of these old street dogs. He kept himself on the street. Anyway, we are delighted to have him. Police now, as everyone I hope knows, are under threat from the White House on down. In my opinion, from the White House down, they want to replace local coppers with federalized cops. They're training in a facility in Georgia. But without further ado, welcome Lieutenant Sutton, calling in from Las Vegas.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. It's always a pleasure to have a chat with you guys.
You taught us a new word the other day called de-policing. Want to tell us about that?
Yeah, it's a very disturbing word. It's something that I have seen take place in departments as a result of incidents. De-policing is basically a conscious effort by police officers to do the absolute bare minimum that they need to do to get by. In other words, you go out on the street, you write a ticket or two if you have to, and you answer your calls for service. You don't do anything proactive. You don't go after. You don't go into urban hunting mode to go after bad guys because they're afraid of not the bad guys, but their own administrations, the politicians that run their cities or their counties or in some cases their country. And they're afraid that because of the politicization of policing that has taken place recently, they are in a greater jeopardy from doing their job than from not doing their job. And this is a very, very disturbing phenomenon. And what I'm seeing around the country due to incidents in Ferguson, New York City, and now in Baltimore, that this is becoming more and more of an issue to American police officers. And before I go even further, I want to say how sorry I am to the New York City Police Department for the loss of Officer Brian Moore, who died today from the injuries he received on Saturday when he was shot by a career criminal while they were trying to make a stop. And it just shows, once again, the dangers that officers face every single day. And those are acceptable dangers from the people on the street. They are not acceptable dangers from the people that we serve and the community leaders that we serve.
Add our condolences to yours, please, Lieutenant, to that.
Yes.
Do you know the circumstances of that?
Yes. Officer Moore and his partner were in a plain car on anti-crime patrol. They spotted an individual who was walking down the street, and he appeared to be adjusting something in his waistband. Now, to most people, that wouldn't signify anything, but to a trained police officer, that signifies there's a good possibility he may be carrying a gun. When they went to investigate, the suspect, before they could even get out of their car, pulled the gun, shot through the windshield, striking Officer Moore in the head, which eventually killed him. He was taken into custody shortly thereafter, and he is a career criminal with numerous violent felonies, including assault on a police officer.
Well, a lot of those out there, as you well know.
Yeah, that's for sure, unfortunately.
Yeah. What do you account for the mood or the impression spreading from coast to coast now that it's the cops' fault? For example, Chicago, whom we work on and off with, is truly ridiculous. The black-on-black crime there is just out of sight. The statistics you know and everybody knows. How the hell is this the police fault? And how is that getting around the U.S. that it's the coppers' fault?
Well, this is it's an interesting phenomenon. The police are the most visible part of the government. They're the most visible part of the representatives of the government. So, because the police are out in uniform, doing very high visibility events, they often get the blame for all of society's ills. What has taken place in Chicago to create an environment of incredible death and destruction, especially in the black community, is not the police's responsibility. It's not their fault. They simply are trying to keep a lid on the crime problem that has resulted from failed policies of the government, both local and federal, the failure to take responsibility for your own life that has permeated some communities, and the terrible economic conditions that occur within the inner cities that lead to a tremendous increase in crime. So it's easy to blame the police because they're the easiest scapegoats to point out and say, "Oh, well, look what they did," and then, as we saw in Baltimore, shift the entire blame towards them and make them the fall guy.
I just read an article about a reporter who returned to Baltimore after 40 years, and he mentioned how back in the day, people would greet each other and the neighbors were all out, and he was really shocked when he went back to Baltimore. It was a completely different environment. There was bars on the windows. People don't even go outside. You ring the doorbell, and nobody will even answer. He was told by some of the people he wanted to meet from days ago that they wouldn't even open the door. So we're seeing a big shift in the neighborhoods. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I actually read that same piece. It was very interesting. And what he related it to was the lack of men taking the responsibility that men traditionally have for years. That is, in guiding youth, mentoring children. And what he reported is seeing is that suddenly the responsibility responsibility for their communities. And as you said, fear gripping these communities and people shutting themselves in. Baltimore has a tremendous amount of problems. It's been building for years and years and years. I had a conversation with a very good friend of mine who related something very disturbing to me from what happened to him in Baltimore just a very short time ago. He went to Baltimore to look for an apartment or for a house with his girlfriend, who was thinking about going to Johns Hopkins University. And when they were down looking for houses, they saw that there are certain neighborhoods that are relatively pleasant to live in, but they're surrounded by neighborhoods that are certainly not very pleasant to live in. And many of these neighborhoods are being gentrified. That is, that people are moving in and fixing up the places, but not to the point where there are large scale communities that are safer places to live. And he was talking to one of the or several of the residents actually, and asking them, what is this a good neighborhood to live in? And they said, oh yeah, this neighborhood's fine. But after 3 o'clock, don't go 2 blocks down that way. 4 o'clock, don't go 6 blocks down that way. And he said, well, why not? He says, because you'll take your life in your hands. And then he saw something else, this phenomenon. I've never heard about this before. And this was shocking to me. He said there were a lot of the houses that he saw had peace signs painted on the door or on the window. An inordinate amount of houses that he saw that had the peace sign on it. He asked this guy that lived in the neighborhood, he said to him, what's the significance of that? And hold on to your shirt on this one. This resident said, oh, well, that's a signal to the gang members that come through the neighborhood that we support their community.
Yeah.
So that they leave us alone and don't hurt us.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now tell me how frightening that is. And unfortunately, you won't hear this from that mayor or that police commissioner who basically gave their demonstrators the right to burn their city down. But this is the reality that's taking place in the city. And who is asked to hold the line? It's the police. It's like sausage, We want to eat it, but we don't want to see how it's made.
Right. A lot of our audience, and you know that we have stunning sources throughout the administration and elsewhere. We have learned and independently corroborated that the mayor of Baltimore was in an incredible amount of time with President Obama and the gal that he works with. And that set up the police retreating and being called off and not allowed to put on riot gear and the rest of it. Quick Yoda anecdote, but it's like an anecdote. I'm treated at the VA in La Jolla by a wonderful primary physician. Back a while ago, he was invited on a full scholarship to Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, so off he went. And they made the mistake, this is some time ago, they made the mistake of touring the city with him. So he got back in his hotel, called his wife, and said, we're not going to Baltimore.
Well, my friend, they made the decision that they weren't going to move to Baltimore either. She decided to go to college elsewhere.
Yeah.
Or graduate school elsewhere because of that very issue.
I have to give a quick backpack a dose, following on the lead of Yoda dose, is that I spent 4 years traveling across the country, and that's how I got my name Backpack. But I spent time in the Bronx, and I did a tour there, and a similar thing as you were talking about Baltimore. They said, it's great during the day. You can see the stadium, the beautiful Yankee Stadium's not far. But they said, don't be here during this time frame because you're probably going to get injured or you might not make it through the next day. But part of being in the free land of the 50 states that we have is to be able to walk around freely. And part of my and I didn't have any security, but part of my thinking and maybe my stubbornness is I want to be able to go anywhere in this country and not have to worry about getting shot or injured or mugged. What are your thoughts?
You know what? I'm that's a basic human right for me. I believe that this country has for the most part historically been a place that you could travel without fear of crime and of being assaulted, and that's the birthright of Americans. So when we think about, okay, these are no zones now, we are offended at that, as well we should be, and unfortunately, when communities allow that to happen in their neighborhoods, what they are doing is surrendering. They're surrendering their human rights to crime. And that's why they need to work with the police instead of being at odds against the police. But it can't be done by the police alone. It has to be done by the citizens who live there.
Do you have these neighborhoods in Las Vegas?
No.
No, I didn't think you did. I worked.
There have been times when there are high crime rate neighborhoods, and there are still, places where there are higher crime issues. But there is not one place that I know of, and I know the city pretty damn well, where you would be afraid to show your face on the streets. It doesn't happen. And quite honestly, we as the police would never allow that to happen.
There were 20, exactly, or more than 20 protests throughout the land yesterday and the day before. 20, my word. The press isn't picking it up, neither Fox or CNN. All they're doing is saying, oh yeah, there was a whole bunch of protests. So Backpack and our team has gone through extraordinary research efforts. They've come up with 20 cities in protest. Where do you see that going, Lieutenant, this summer?
I am very concerned about what's going to take place this summer. I believe that there are.
Hello. We're interrupting Lieutenant Randy Sutton. We have online the much-awaited, glad he's here, the General Paul E. Vallely. General, stand by one, if you will, sir. Backpack.
Actually, we have Stryker on the line. How are you doing, Stryker?
Oh, I would love to have been mistaken for Major General Paul Vallely. He is what a compliment! You couldn't pay me a better compliment than to mix me up with Major General Paul Vallely. Let me tell you, good to talk to you, gentlemen, tonight. How are you?
Thank you, sir.
Good to hear your partner. We're having one of those shows, management by objective and management by exception. We're doing management by my chaos. We had some miscommunication with the good General Vallely. Stand by with us, if you will, brother. We're wrapping up a 30-minute part one of a series with the good Lieutenant Sutton out of Vegas. Stand by on air with us, would you, brother?
Absolutely. That's my intent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Stand by.
Professional agitators, if you will, organized agitators that are using social media in a way that social media was never intended to be used, and that is to foment distrust, violence, and organizing of, I'm going to call it urban terrorism, because I believe that's exactly what it is.
Thank you.
So this summer, the wick has already been lit. The wick was lit in Baltimore. The wick was lit in, every time's fast. The wick was lit in Ferguson, in New York. Seattle recently, within the last few days, had tremendous protests. and not even about anything of any consequence. They weren't even protesting. They were protesting for the sheer joy of protesting in Seattle, May Day of all things. Okay, and saw a great deal of violence, but it was handled very, very well by the Seattle Police Department. But these have already ignited, so they're now on slow burn. And as we all know, when summertime comes, and there is often, the kids are out of school, which causes even more issues. The possibilities of serious civil uprisings is first and foremost on the minds of America's police.
We're under a double threat now. We work closely with federal agencies, and they are predicting a long, hot summer with ISIS. Actually, Al-Qaeda uprising has occurred last night, whatever they want to call it, in Garland near Texas. So we're under a double threat as we see it. One, as you so ably described, and the next, maybe equal in terms of publicity, is attacks on our homeland from ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Backpack did an interesting thing. He uncovered actual terrorist training camps throughout the United States by Islamics. What does the president call these camps?
Well, they're being called communal living, and it's also preventing a lot of them from getting exposed in the FBI reports because of that, because they're not allowed, the FBI is not allowed to use the word Islamic or terror in their reports. They have to say communal living. So that's one of the things we're running into. We've talked to Ryan Morrow and Clarion Project, who's on numerous Fox and radio shows, and he brings that to light as well. They're working hard to also expose the terror camps, and he expressed the same frustration in a recent interview we had with him. So Voices of Global Freedom, we're interviewing Lieutenant Randy Sutton, who is the national spokesperson for American Council on Public Safety. Lieutenant Sutton, you've done an article you're working on called Deep Policing. Please tell our audience where they can find that and some of the takeaways from the article.
Well, they can come to my Facebook page, under Randy Sutton. I'm not exactly hiding. And deep policing is a term that you're going to hear much more about, unfortunately. I guess it's a conscious choice made by police officers to do the bare minimum while they go out and do their duties. And that is, they answer their calls, they might write a ticket or two, but they're not going to proactively seek out the urban predators that prey on society for fear that they will be subjected to what these officers in Baltimore are now being subjected to, prosecution. The realities of policing are very often misunderstood or not understood at all by the people that we serve. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is because the police actually want to preserve the certain innocence that the public has. We bear the brunt of the cruelty, and we want to protect people from those harsh realities of what people are capable of doing to one another. So there's a certain, protection that we want to provide as far as the knowledge about the real negative criminal activity that's out there, and that's a double-edged sword because of that, many of the people that we serve don't understand the true nature of policing. So let me give you a statistic. I don't really like to spout statistics because they can be used as propaganda and they can be manipulated. But last year, 126 police officers were killed in the line of duty. An astonishing statistic is that more than 50,000 police officers were assaulted in the line of duty. we're going to prosecute you for murder. How many police officers are going to voluntarily put themselves in that position? It's madness. Madness. And until the politicians of this country understand and have the guts to stand up for the police, I am afraid that we are going to see depolicing.
We are in absolute unconditional agreement with you. We talked to a lot of coppers. We talked to the good feds, And I looked up, last time you appeared with us, you surfaced with the word depolicing. I sure hope that catches on. I searched it on the internet, and it's not there yet, but the good news and bad news is I think it soon will be. It's a good term anyway. I work with the Guardia Civil in Spain. They're a federal military police. Some years ago, I'm old, they were in a concerted national effort. I forget the incident that caused it, but they were depolicing a lot. And the crime stats just went over the top. They like the Carabinieri in Italy, like the Gendarmerie in France. They're national with full authority, and they just quit being proactive. And finally, the conditions got so bad in Madrid, Barcelona, and elsewhere that they just had to go back to real cop stuff, catching bad guys. I sure hope it doesn't get that bad here. It was gruesome.
We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with Lieutenant Randy Sutton. He is the national spokesperson for American Council on Public Safety, defendingtheshield.org. Energy Efficiency Pros, EE Pros, solutions that save you money. Are you a commercial business looking to reduce costs on your energy bill? Replacing traditional light bulbs with LEDs? Whoa. Replacing traditional light bulbs with LED results in tremendous savings every month. Commercial, industrial, and manufacturing facilities from coast to coast are saving up to 90% on their skyrocketing costs of energy. Energy costs are rising every month, but using EE Pros lighting saves money, time, and will bring you happier employees and customers. For a free audit and evaluation of your facility, contact or email Don Arrigo, president of EE Pros, at 480-585-9161, 480-585-9161. Tell Don that Backpack of Voices of Global Freedom Radio referred you. Yoda, have you had some experience with this?
I have. I've talked to two of Don's customers. Both are saving. One's in the high 70 percentile. It's a large parking lot of his energy bill. Absolutely extraordinary. As you know, the President of the United States is boasting about his causing energy bills to rise. He shut down coal mines, and he's done other anti-energy, anti-fossil fuel stuff. Other people I talked to were a hospital. They're saving in the 80 percentile in their energy bill. Sounds too good to be true, but it isn't. Impact EE Pros in Scottsdale, Arizona, bro.
Please go check out eepros.com. I say again, eepros.com.
Right.
We are back with Voices of Global Freedom Radio. We have just finished up part one of Lieutenant Randy Sutton, American Council on Public Safety, defendingtheshield.org. Wow, what an incredible depolicing. And what are your thoughts, Yoda, about all this that's going on in the nation?
my thoughts and decades of experience with law enforcement, it's totally unprecedented. In fact, the President of the United States, his new Attorney General, who you call what, brother?
Loretta Lynching Law Enforcement.
Loretta Lynch is indeed. They're working in at least 10 cities now, uncovering, nitpicking, hair-splitting, everything that might be wrong with the police department. And they're insisting they do it their way. That's federalization, brother, which never worked out. Never worked out. It's a concern because when seconds count, the cops are going to take minutes to get there now. Here's what happens. There are a lot of one-man units in the United States. They're going to wisely, prudently, safely wait for a second unit. That's going to increase response times. A lot of cities are proud of their 4 and 5 minute response to a call for service. That's going to extend that. Also, coppers are human. I found that out. Doctors make mistakes, killing all kind of people throughout the year. The surgeons, bankers make a lot of mistakes, even airline pilots. But cops aren't allowed to make mistakes, man. One mistake, and they're human, and it's headlines the next day. Obama is using these, along with this guy's name. Who's close to him, the black guy that's a rabble rouser? Who am I thinking of like that?
Oh, Al Sharpton.
Al Sharpton. Stirring all this up. Look at the stats, the statistics in places like Chicago, D.C., L.A., New York, of black-on-black crime. It is incredible. And cops now recently in Baltimore being restrained and actually ordered to retreat. I know, along with Randy, that cops have to pull their horns in. They're going to be less proactive. They're not going to be running around aggressively chasing bad guys. It can lead to ruination of their lives. I think our dear friend Stryker's with us from the Leading Edge Network. You with us, Stryker?
Welcome back, Stryker. We wanted to get your comments on Lieutenant Randy Sutton's.
Well, Stryker is present and accounted for, and Lieutenant Randy's comments certainly right on the mark, and of course Yoda as well. Certainly, law enforcement response times are going to double, triple, and I think there'll be a much more carefully measured approach to the officers in the street as to how they deal with things. Certainly, they're going to be very careful not to shoot anybody in the back, and if they have to pull their weapon. In fact, the gentleman you guys are meeting Monday or Tuesday that we discussed, who's former Secret Service, he's very proud of the fact that with all the agencies he worked for during the good days, as we'll call it, Yoda, when you were out there actively 110% on the streets. Maybe now you're only 90% on the streets, but he had a fine record of never having to fire his weapon, so except on the range. But I think those days are now such, for the most part, over. And with the fact that the plantation pimps who are out there that want to see the police force federalized and other such nonsense, we're going to see more and more good officers retire, look for other means of income, just because of what happened in Ferguson and what's currently happening in Baltimore. And so I hope and pray that the officers will reconsider, abandoning ship. I know most of them will not, but, in the case of the Ferguson shooting and the Baltimore situation, which I do believe the guys and gals in Baltimore, I really believe that rush to judgment, that's a circus, it's a kangaroo court, and ultimately I think that they will be probably exonerated or mildly punished maybe wrongfully so, maybe rightfully so. We'll see. Let's let the justice system do its thing. But needless to say, if there's not a conviction on those 6 in Baltimore, it's very possible that Baltimore might not be a real good place to live for a while.
With our information, we're querying law enforcement around the country. Recruiters, for the first time ever, are having a hell of a time recruiting coppers. Typically, there is 1,000 recruits, applicants, for one guy or gal that makes it through the academy and field training. Recruiters are having a hell of a time now. Those eligible for retirement are retiring. And the rest of the heroic guys and gals have to protect themselves. They can't allow a simple routine arrest of some scuzz ruin their and their family lives. Look at these poor guys in Baltimore. They're professional cops. They're not plumbers or bricklayers or something. They don't have any other skills to rely on to get a job. What the hell are they to do now? No matter how it comes out for them. Stryker, you're a neighbor of the incident near you down there in Texas, where the good guys won the other night. A 60-year-old reserve officer did away with a couple of these evil terrorist bastards waving AK-47s around. Would you share what you know about that from your sources, please?
I'll be happy to. I trust you received my message last night regarding the caliber that took those 2 rats down.
We did.
Excellent. Well, just to give everybody a little bit of history on that, I'm sure most everybody heard about it in the news, but these terrorists or wannabe terrorists who pulled up, this was certainly not a case of workplace violence, although the security officer that was shot in the ankle is probably thankful today that these clowns were bad shots. So his ankle, I'm sure, is healing now. It's been almost a week since the incident, but thankfully one of the officers there, as you had indicated, Yoda, was on the ball, and essentially we're talking. Let's just say I don't want to go into all the details, some of which might still be a little on the sensitive side, but let's just say that there was enough wherewithal by that officer to exterminate the first suspect, and literally before his head hit the pavement, the second one was already going down too. So I found it quite interesting that they left those people out there on public display, and of course for good reason. It sends a message, but that might be the secondary issue. The first issue was officer safety, to make sure that the bomb sniffing robots and so forth could effectively cover those individuals who could have been wearing terrorist belts or have other such explosives on them and so forth, as well as their car having been gone over. But this sort of thing is going to set a precedent in the future because these types of events. I know we live in a free country. There's no question about that, and we should be able to do pretty much what we feel like doing. But now we're on some pretty dangerous ground. So when you have an event like this, you have to expect situations like this. And thankfully, law enforcement was ready. And, of course, had law enforcement not been ready, even if those terrorists had gotten on the inside, we see they were pretty lousy shots, but they would have met with some unbelievable firepower on the inside because, these events, Pamela Geller is not just guarded a little bit, she's highly guarded, and now those efforts have been tripled. So, I know they want to go after her, but they will end up meeting with the same fate those other 2 asshats met with.
Notice, brother, how the left now is characterizing her as the bad guy and the little bastard terrorists as victims. They're very good at that in all of their public relations, aren't they? Back,
they are.
Sorry, bro. How's the White House characterizing the incident?
Well, the abomination's calling it communal living, and that's preventing reports being made by our FBI and law enforcement. They're not allowed to use Islam or terror when they're creating these reports, and there's a lot more reporting that could be done out there, but because of this abomination use of words, picture somebody playing a guitar and singing Kumbaya in the woods. This is not what these people are doing. If you go to terrorcamps.com, you'll see they're blowing up buses, small arms, fire training. They're planning for an assault, and sometimes it takes 7 years before they actually carry out these missions. So we want to see the wording change. That this is not James Taylor playing a guitar. These are people, bad guys, shooting up things and training to do missions that we don't even know about yet.
Should you come in contact, Stryker, with the heroic officer, give him our fondest best, if you will.
Yes, sir.
As you know,
I certainly will.
Making holes in paper on a range is one thing. In combat shooting is quite another. I've talked to a couple.
I have it on good authority. I have it on very good authority that at all levels of law enforcement, he is being hailed as a hero, and his money is when they went out to dinner, his money was absolutely no good at the restaurant.
I'll bet it was. That was an amazing bit of combat shooting. Wow.
Yeah,
it was.
You heard that he had a .45,
huh? He took him down with .45. That was the information that I was given, and if it turns out that it was something different, and that was my first guess, and that was my guess, but someone did confirm it to me last night. So they were not privy to the investigation, but sometimes information walks. So unlike the case of terrorists, they're done. And if they consider this operation to be successful, with two of their guys sprawled out there on the ground, bled out for 12 hours, that's not much of a success. So it really should serve a message to those who would try it. They'll probably shift over to states where there are gun laws that are highly restrictive. But Texas, no matter where you go, the guys are probably not just carrying one gun. They may be carrying two or three.
Telling a story on the good Lieutenant Sutton out of Vegas on a little while ago. He's extraordinarily been in 5 gunfights or 5 firefights. In one of them, he had a 9mm semi-automatic pistol jam in the gunfight. And he survived that and went out and bought a .45. The old cop story is, little old lady sees a burly cop with a .45 and says, "Why do you have that big .45? He responded, "Because they haven't made a .46 yet."
One of our previous guests, Larry Pratt, who is the Gun Owners of America Association, he is the executive director. He's been on numerous shows, and one of the things he points out, and statistics back this up, is that we want across all America to have gun-heavy zones. It's something like statistics in around 90% or so of things happen in gun-free zones. So one of the things we look at is how do we get more gun-heavy zones to make sure that the good guys have guns so they can take down the bad guys.
Well, the only thing that'll beat a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Yes, sir.
True.
Absolutely.
How the hell can they rationalize a gun-free zone, not knowing that that's an absolute invitation to the active shooter, to the bad guy? How the hell can they get there?
I don't know. I think that is some. I think that's some very convoluted logic or thinking on the part of the left. Probably something out of Saul Alinsky's playbook and some of this other nonsense that is espoused by the left. You know, one too many tokes of a joint. You know, one of the things that I'm really amazed at, in addition to what you just brought up, Yoda, is the fact that how does anyone who is supposed to have privy to information, the highest information in the land, don't they vet these people? I mean, you know, last I heard, in order to get a security clearance and maintain a security clearance, let alone get one, you must never have done illegal drugs. And, you know, it's just a well-known fact that some of these people have not just done them once, but done them numerous times. So it seems as if the standards are relaxing out there for some, and then for others, there are no standards.
Well, you're spot on, brother. In fact, all of the agencies except DEA, to my knowledge, have accepted applicants that admit, including on a polygraph, that admit they've done one or two smokes of marijuana recreationally or so. It's that prevalent now that they've forced to accept them. Yeah, it's that heavy now. Where do you see, from your perspective, this de-policing thing going, brother?
Oh, boy. You know, that is that's a loaded question, Yoda, but I'll answer it as best I can, to the best of my ability, as we heard one former president say. But the only difference is I'm not going to lie. I'm just going to quickly tell you the truth of as the world according to Stryker. How's that?
Good.
I see this. I see this as a very serious situation. We're not dealing with one thing; we're dealing with many. You know, the federalization of the police forces is exactly what they want at the very top. They want to, as you know, get rid of the street cops. They want to eliminate the local sheriffs, and everybody wants to bring in DHS or any of the other things. And, you know, if you look at the similarities to what happened during the Third Reich, you know, these times are almost parallel, and you could say that there is a Fourth Reich that has risen. And I will say this, and I've said it many times before, the Third Reich makes the Fourth Reich look like child's play. The Fourth Reich, if we actually have a Fourth Reich, and they eliminate the street cops and the local sheriffs, these people are heartless, soulless, brutal, despisers of good, purveyors of evil, and it will be, I think ultimately what some of them want is civil war, because if they can provoke civil war, then you will have a reason to bring in these federalized forces, and then you will start to see roundups of good people who are on lists. So we won't get into all that this evening, but, you know, there are lists. They're out there. They exist. Sorry to say, gentlemen, all of us, at least the three of us, are probably on those lists. And what does it take to qualify to get on the list? Well, I'll steal your thunder for a second. I'm sure you probably were going to ask that question next. But essentially, to get on that list, you know, if you're a patriot, if you're a Christian, if you read the Bible, maybe you homeschool your kids, maybe you go to church. Maybe you don't like what's happening in the current administration. Those are just a few of the things that'll get you there.
I really like your analogy. I was actually in the occupation of Germany. I was there 30 days before the occupation ended, which means I get a medal. If you were there 29 days, you didn't get a medal. I worked with the German police for about 11 months in a major industrial city, Mannheim. Spent some time with them in Heidelberg and elsewhere, and you were spot on. Many of these were coppers before Hitler took over. Then they were decoppered. He put in, as you would know in backpack and some of the audience, they put on the brown shirts, which they then killed, and put in the black shirts. So I worked with them 11 months, rode with them, and the stories I got are exactly parallel to what's going on here now, only they didn't see it coming at the time. Many of these were young coppers when Hitler took over. And pretty soon they weren't coppers anymore. None of them saw it coming. It was interesting. So your parallel is stark and really spot on. If you adjust for technology and communications today, there's a lot of similarities, brother. A lot.
Well, there are. And, one of the things that, as we talk about the stark and the dark here, is the fact that these folks, the ones that don't see it, part of that is they don't want to see it. They don't want to believe that, some of these quote-unquote tinfoil hat conspiracy theories might be something to them. But after a while, in your gut, you start to say, how long am I going to be in denial? And, one of the very last things you ever want to do is, ascribe to tinfoil hat theories. And, of course, my dad was a former Green Beret. He was in the 10th and 12th Special Forces group. And, one of the things he cautioned me early on was, he says, listen, don't get involved in a militia group because you will be considered an enemy of the United States government. And, of course, you don't want to be an enemy of your government. That's the last thing you want to do, and it's the last thing you want to be accused of. But, if you start to look at the things that we see happening now, you really start to wonder. And, of course, I really hope that Major General Paul Vallely is able to join us this evening, because I don't think there would be anybody any better on the planet who would know, having been in the position that he's been in here in our nation and commanding special operations. I think there would be, in as much as he could tell us and tell the audience, I'm sure that he is wide awake to this scenario, and this will be, as soon as you do have him on the program, this is going to be one fine program.
Well, we're going to get Major General Paul Vallely back. I want to say Voices of Global Freedom Radio, interview with Lieutenant Randy Sutton, American Council on Public Safety, DefendingTheShield.org, and Stryker with LeadingEdgeRadioNetwork.com. We have a chat room here with Robert Rout. We want to say hello to you, and he's giving us kudos. He says, great show. You guys are covering it well. I'm hanging out, and I'm looking to see if he'll ask questions or call in. We always welcome listeners and callers and comments, so we just got a huge kudos from Robert. Thank you for your comments. And also, this whole board is on fire right now. We're just we're bringing up stuff that we're not hearing on mainstream media, and that's what Voices of Global Freedom, Leading Edge Radio Network, and all the other syndicates that we're working with, and it's an honor and privilege for us to be working with Stryker Leading Edge Radio Network.
I've got a question. Ask Brother Stryker about this network. We've got 3 emails that I see. One from Texas, one from, I can't pronounce it. Anyway, ask him about that network, would you, brother?
As far as the Leading Edge Radio Network, our audience wants to hear more about the channels and what all is going on with the latest news.
Well, I'll be happy to very briefly, or at least succinctly, talk to you about that. We are still 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all talk radio with some of the greatest, most informative shows, and of course, Backpack and Yoda being one of those shows. And in fact, we like to say around Leading Edge, there are 2 groups that own the night, and that would be Backpack and Yoda, and some of the programming that I guess you could call it our sister network, or brother and sister network, I call it. Don Newen and I and Donna Fiducia, we've become attached at the hip, and of course Major General Paul Vallely is part of that network with his fine work that he's doing there with them. But we're really pleased, to be able to bring some of the most informative information that's relevant. We do, like Yoda and Backpack, we do have really good sources out in the field. It's been fun because, I've been asked to sit in some meetings that a guy like myself, you would think, would never get the opportunity to be a part of. But there's a wonderful group of young intelligence professionals that Cyber Defense Labs works with over in Dallas, who I have obviously an association with, and then of course our channel 2. If you get a little fatigued with all the goings on in the world, it's okay. If you're listening to All Talk Radio 24 hours a day, you might miss some of the good days because we do play some great music on channel 2. If you like oldies or doo-wop or just anything contemporary hits. Got contemporary Christian music over on Channel 3 as well. So there's really something for everybody over there, and we're very, very excited about our association with you guys, Yoda and Backpack. These guys, they're just so much fun to work with, and I'm talking directly to the audience now because I've already made it very clear to them how much fun it is to work with them. But I believe if you really want to stay informed, you keep it tuned in to Yoda and Backpack and Leading Edge, and also WDFP .us, Don and Donna's network, because here you're going to get the straight scoop. And of course, there's many, many other good networks out there, and I'll let Backpack kind of plug those now. What do you say, Backpack?
Well, this is excellent time, and we're excited to have Rowdy Ricky Robinson, who has his own show, America Off the Rails. He's just calling in. He's also the manager for K98 Talk, and he's had an incredible opportunity. There's a Southern Leadership Conference that's coming up in May, very shortly, in, I believe, Oklahoma. And welcome, Rowdy Ricky, for calling in. How are you doing, sir?
Doing fine, guys. How are you?
We're doing great. It was a great segue. Please say hello to Stryker with Leading Edge Radio Network, and proud to be working with you all. And what's going on in your world, sir?
Not too much. Hey, Stryker. I don't think we've actually met yet. I'm Rick Robinson. I'm the programming director of K98Talk.com, the managing partner of the Spark Radio Network, and I host an actually wide array of shows. I actually do have a little bit of breaking news about one of the shows, the one that you mentioned, Backpack, America Off the Rails. I've actually been contacted Friday. I have a group that I'm supposed to have a telephone meeting with on Monday. We may actually be about to be taking that show terrestrial, so I'm kind of happy about that. Can't really give any details yet because we're still in negotiations, but I'm pretty stoked. But yeah, back to what you mentioned a moment ago. The Southern Republican Leadership Conference will be here in the Oklahoma City area from May 21st to the 23rd. Myself and one of the other hosts from the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show right here on K98 Talk as well will be covering the entirety of the conference. We'll actually be set up on the rail as well. So I'm kind of excited about that too.
I didn't hear what you said about the maybe, Ricky. What have you got going?
Actually got a group that just contacted me about possibly taking America off the rails into 7 terrestrial markets. So I have a conference call with them on Monday. So I'm pretty excited, and we'll just have to wait to see what happens.
Proud of you, brother. Good on you.
That's great. Wonderful news.
Absolutely.
So what all will your responsibilities be at the, tell us more about the Southern Leadership Conference and how many people will be attending?
As far as we know, the basic numbers I'm getting now are probably going to be anywhere from overall crowd expectancy of anywhere for the 3-day event of about 25 to 30,000. They're going to have folks like Donald Trump there. Ben Parsons announced that he's going to be there. Most of the folks that have already announced that they're going to be Republican frontrunners have already also announced that they're going to be there as well. So we're going to be having several opportunities to hopefully interview some of those folks. We're actually going to have one of our PR folks with us trying to round up interviews while we're doing everything else. But it seems like it's going to be a lot of fun. It's one of the first times we've ever really tried to do anything like that. So we're pretty excited about it. So hopefully it goes well so we can keep doing it.
What are you hearing?
I want everybody to know that if there's anything at all that Leading Edge can do, we still have some good programming spots, and K98 Talk does a great job. I've listened to some of your programming, so if there's anything that we can do to ever help in any way, shape, or form, we're here for you.
Actually, I may take you up on that. Do me a favor. I don't know if you've got it, but jot this down. It's my email address. It's ricky@thesparkradionetwork.com. You can reach me there at almost any time. I would give out my private cell number, but every time I do that on the air, I get weird people calling me. So if you email me, I'll shoot you my cell number.
Yeah, that happened to me one time too. I understand that. In fact, I gave my home phone number out on an interview, and I ended up marrying her. So, but it worked out. That was 21 years ago. So, or going on 21 years ago. So, yeah, that's what happens when you forget your publicist's phone number. So, yeah, I think you're probably right not to give your phone number out. Unfortunately, I don't have a pen. Backpack, do you have a pen?
Well, we'll follow up later off air.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, I look forward to that. We will definitely get together for sure.
I've got one that worked out. Somehow we put a number out on our magazine, themagnifiedview.com, and we got a call from a Libyan area country code. So I can say about 9 things in Arabic, and none of them were appropriate. So we went through incredible bother to get the damn thing translated. And what it was this idiot calling me I was a camel hair or something. I was some terrorist bothering to call me from Tripoli, near Tripoli. So we fed him back. We fed him back to the embassy, our embassy, of course, in Tripoli. Roy was calling me camel hair. Backpack was calling me camel hair for months. You can imagine. And other names. What else? Stryker is a personal friend. We work together in a lot of areas, Ricky. And I would commend you to make contact with him in the strongest terms. We have what we call a cadre, an inner circle of people we work closely with, and Stryker leads the band in that thing, so I'd go with him. What else you got going, Ricky?
We may have just signed another show. I can't really announce that yet because we're still in negotiations for the paperwork, but They'll be joining us if it does work out Thursday nights at 9 o'clock. They are on another network now, so once I'm able to announce it, you'll probably know who they are. Honestly, most of my attention right now has been focusing on the big opportunity. I have also just recently started negotiating with an interview for an author who wrote a book recently, so we'll be scheduling him to probably appear on Off the Rails sometime in June. And let me see if I can find his name real quick. Might as well give him a shout out on the air. It's Mr. Patrick Fornari. He has written a book that I've just started reading that actually is a bit of a page turner. And the book, if you want to look at it, you can find it on Amazon. It's as a download. It's basically it's called Commoner Sense. It's a really good read. It's fairly short. I'm about halfway through it. I don't know about you guys, but I really don't have much time to read much of anything anymore unless I'm doing research. So, but this one's been one that I've been really interested in. We've been talking back and forth for a few weeks to try to get an interview done. So I'm excited to let you guys know that he will be appearing with us at some point in June. We just haven't narrowed down the date yet. I told him I'm not really committing to do much of anything until I get through this conference because there's just so much to do beforehand. I didn't realize how much work went into this type of stuff because, like I said, we'd never even really tried to do anything like that before. And the fact that we're going to get to do it is amazing. And not only that, but at the same time, just the simple fact of the matter is there's a lot of beforehand stuff you've got to do, especially if you've never done anything like this before. There's been some setup stuff that we've had to deal with that hopefully we'll be ready to roll the next time, so hopefully it won't be quite so stressful. But it's been fun. It's been stressful in a fun way, so I can't complain.
Hey, Yoda, I have a quick question for you.
Oh, sure.
Oh, bro.
Quick question for Yoda. I know a few moments ago you asked me, well, what all's Leading Edge up to? I know we sound like a broken record, but I know what you were doing. You were baiting me to tell the listeners about Channel 4 Classic Country, but more so you really wanted to get to our law enforcement Leading Edge Radio Network, LERN. We call it the Law Enforcement Radio Network, also, and the military channel. So I don't want to leave people hanging. They're coming. We're working on them. And, of course, you guys are helping us fill those channels. It's probably going to be this network is, thanks to you and Backpack and the help of many others, I think it's just going to be a great place for people to listen to.
As you and Ricky would know better than we do, you need to fill a need, and there is a growing need, as we've discussed during this show. There's a growing need now in law enforcement support and participation. So with depolicing, with cops really in the crosshairs, it needs a voice and a platform and a channel. We are supremely confident you're going to be providing that. Since our private conversation yesterday off air, we've talked to how many officers, Ron?
We've talked to hundreds of feedback, either through print or face-to-face. We're having Captain Marshall Frank, a true patriot, on in the near future.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
We do have a caller, area code 845. If you want to go ahead and speak your mind.
Well, first off, I just called in. Sorry I tuned in so late. General, I want to thank you for being out here and commenting. And we need as many voices as we can out here discussing these issues and our views from common sense, reality. And I'm not seeing enough of it. Today I spent probably 2 hours debating with some of my fellow Facebookers that are out there on this issue, what happened in Garland. And they're taking the liberal stance where they're saying that, it was provoked. They shouldn't have provoked them. They have to be understanding of this other religion. And I'm trying to say, you people, you're judging what's going on in the Middle East, ISIS, and all of these issues based on how you live your lives here. And you're wrong. You can't. And you're absolutely wrong. It's a different world out there, and I don't understand how they're thinking. But I see the results of how they're thinking by who we elect to office. and the people that are running this country. We're faced with it's a mess out there. It's a mess.
Excellent call, brother. Tell us your handle in a nearby city.
Yeah. Pardon me?
What's your first name in a nearby city?
My name is Mike. I'm about an hour north of Mordor, New York City.
Glad to have you. You have just won a free couple months on a forum, a Magnified View forum that's coming up soon. If you will, send us an email on themagnifiedview.com. What do you do for a living, brother?
I feed military.
Okay.
I'm a government contractor, my wife and I, and I'm proud to say it that we're not the Halliburtons, we're the mom and pop kettles of the contracting world. We do the best job of taking care of our soldiers, our men and women in uniform that we can, and in spite of it, I'll tell you what, the system is so flawed that they penalized us for doing it. They tell us that what we do is illegal, that we are bribing the troops for exceeding the minimum requirements of the contract and serving things like shrimp scampi in our mess hall, and that we have to go by the Army 14-day and 21-day menu and adhere to AR 30-22, and I fight them tooth and nail. And I will not lower my standards to match a substandard vendor just to make it easier on them. And so I'm pretty outspoken about it, and I paid the price, and I continue to pay the price. They come down on us hard. You know how the system is, sir. And but there's a place for us and our voices. I feel that ultimately I'm convinced that we did the right thing in closing our business to do this. I don't know. It's the world values in general across the board are upside down. I don't understand it anymore. This isn't the country I grew up in. I just sometimes I sit back amazed, and I'm convinced that our government was on autopilot when the economy was good and it fueled it. They used the money to cover their incompetence. But now that the money's drying up, they don't have the ability to hide their incompetence, and we're seeing all the shortcomings. It's coming to the top. And I have a feeling we're in for a worse time. I think until this administration changes, we're going to see a lot more mistakes and a lot more problems, and negotiating with Iran, putting up with ISIS, changing the I don't get it. I don't get it. The politicians should have been kept out of the military. Any of the military decisions or anything, in my opinion, Samara, Fallujah, we should have handled it the way we did in World War II. At the end of World War II, we pulled up on a German town. The minute we drew fire, we pulled back, call in air or artillery, flatten the town. After we did that a few times, the Burgermeister would come out to our advanced party, one of our recon units, and say, with a white flag, the Burgermeister would say, please don't flatten my town. There's a sniper in that building, and there's a tank hiding over there. Yeah. They learned their lesson. But now we've allowed the politicians to dictate, to handle the tactics and the policies and jeopardize the lives of our soldiers. In my opinion, we should have flattened Samara and Fallujah. It wasn't worse. One of our soldiers being wounded or killed. But then again,
good on you, brother.
Yep, that would label me as a redneck. So,
do I dare ask if you were in World War II?
No, I'm not that old. I wish I could have said that I was. It would have been an honor, but I'm 58.
Yeah, you're a whippersnapper. I occupied Germany for 30 days after the end of the war. You are certainly our kind of guy. What are you seeing about the cops now in where you live? You hear anything about what they're saying?
No, I don't see anything about the police. I mean, a lot of the police in the smaller towns that are up here, we're fine. A lot of the attitudes in the city, and it doesn't matter whether it's New York, Chicago, in my opinion, or Los Angeles, there's a liberal feel-good, I don't know what the whacked-out utopian view, these idiots, what their views are, the ones that are in control, but they're the ones that are against any type of authority, whether it's police or, I mean, look at the Occupy Wall Street attitude. They do not believe in and will not recognize any type of authority. They don't want to hear it. They want to be free to do whatever they want and interpret things the way that they want. And the police stand in their way. And now a new push I've seen on the web, they're claiming that the police should be disarmed. They're afraid of the police. They don't trust them. But in the smaller towns, the police are part of our community. They have a job to do, and they should be treated with respect. But this society that we've allowed to get out of hand has taught the kids that they no longer respect the courts, the police, the military, the government. Hell, they don't even respect their own families. There's no accountability out there. The values, family values and everything have been changed completely. They don't want to admit it, but it's a fact. That's the way it is. Look at this new thing about stomping on the American flag. What the hell is that? They don't care. Accountability doesn't exist. So down in the cities, they're going to bitch and complain about the police. They're going to twist it the way they want and say, oh, it's only the blacks that are being targeted. Oh, it's only this. Oh, it's only that. They don't want to face the facts. They don't want to admit to it. It doesn't fit their narrative. So.
Yoda, this 58-year-old gentleman needs his own radio show.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Backpack just wrote this in the pad. Yeah, he does. Glad to have you with us, brother. Glad to have you with us.
Glad to be here. I mean, it's nice sharing opinions and views with people that are on the same page. And but hey, we do what we can in due form, and what are you going to do? Just keep.
We'd like
away.
to know you better. Send me an email, if you will. radio@magnifiedview.com. radio@magnifiedview.com. In the subject line, put Saturday. As Stryker said, he and Ricky have extensive backgrounds in the radio business. Stryker's been in the radio business since Marconi. I don't know.
Hey, I was just out there. I was just
1978 was when Marconi was, I've been in since 78. Not 1878, I'm talking 1978.
No, what was that? That was radio at...
Magnified View.
Magnified?
The word... Yeah, magnified, MAGNIFIED, view, VIEW.com.
I'm sending it. I'll put in the subject matter Saturday.
If Stryker, in the likes of Ricky, another radio guy, compliments you, you should take it seriously. Maybe you've got a future in radio.
I don't know. I just sent you an email. I'll put my contact number in there too.
Mm-hmm. Don't quit your day job, but keep feeding the military. And this might be a very nice avocation. You have a lot to say, and you say it very succinctly and very eloquently. So I would definitely consider it.
I'll tell you, gents. I've learned early on that. See, we had. Don't mind me. I've got to walk my dogs out. So if you hear them complaining, it's just going upstairs. But we had a restaurant, and we're close to New York City. The military came to us right when 9/11 happened that day, and they asked if we would be willing to run the mess hall for 2 to 3 weeks and feed the soldiers going to Ground Zero. Now, I've been a military historian. I've collected war souvenirs, World War II specifically, German and Japanese and American, since I was 7 years old. I've been at it. I mean, and I loan items to several networks, history. I've worked with several museums. A lot of my stuff's been used in books. But so it's different having a perspective when you get the artifacts from the veterans and you have something to draw parallels. Americans, a lot of them, because of the schools, they have nothing to draw a parallel to. They can't make a comparison. We're discussing the second.
I hear you. One of the this is Voices of Global Freedom host Backpack and Yoda, broadcasting from San Diego. We hear you. We just did a Communist Common Core expose on the last show that we did. Was a really groundbreaking show with Dr. Peg Luksic, and we're going to put that on YouTube and many other things. I want to thank the chat room, and we're lighting up. This computer is smoking right now. We got a comment, I have to say, Paige Weeks, I want to thank you for your son's service. He was in Iraq. He did 2 tours, and he wrote numerous articles, and the latest one was about the Second Amendment. I thank you for what you put out there on chat, and thank you for your son's service and helping our country. You're welcome to call in or write some more comments. We'll put that out on the air. But thank you, Paige Weeks, and I want to thank you to Kilroy and Robert Rout for your comments. You're always welcome to make comments. Call in. We're every Saturday, 4 p.m. Pacific. Our call-in is 646-652-4667. You're always welcome to call in, and we've had a great show. So Paige just said you're welcome, so thank you, and we really appreciate it. If you can, comment, Paige, how is your son doing now? If he's still out there in the Sadlands, or I guess Sadlands or Sandlands. They're both pretty going on right now, but we appreciate your son's service. We're with Stryker, Ricky, and our caller here. We want to thank you for feeding our veterans and your service too for our country. You've done so much to help.
It's been an honor.
Thank you, sir.
I've spent Yoda here. I've spent extensive time in Iraq and Afghanistan. There's a British outfit there that's feeding the troops. It's enormous, my word. They've got zillions-dollar contracts and people all over the Sandland feeding our troops and doing laundry and that kind of stuff. Interesting. How big were you feeding a battalion or a regiment or a base, or what were you feeding, brother? What are you feeding?
The highest number I fed that we fed was 1,200 per meal. The lowest number I fed was 1. So
okay.
I mean, it's sort of being on call, where we'll get a call from, it could be anything from a supply sergeant, an S4. We never know what's going to come down, whether it's federal, state, and they'll call us up and sort of yank our leash. But you know what? It's been, people say, why don't you reopen the restaurant? But I'll tell you what, once you've been a part of it and you know these men and women and their families, and you become part of the family, something you can't easily walk away from, because they're a part of your lives. And it's hard to describe. I mean, to somebody on the outside, it's a different set of, like one group of them that first came back from Iraq in the very beginning were behind the mess hall, and when they were talking about it, and I said, so how do you feel? How was it to come back? And a bunch of them agreed. They said the hardest thing about coming back was explaining to their loved ones, justifying what we're doing over there, because the loved ones have been listening to nothing but the media over here and didn't get it. They didn't understand. And a lot of the soldiers that didn't understand when they ended up deployed, once they served over there and they saw and they understood, you know, what they were fighting for and who they were representing, and they got it, a lot of them re-upped. I mean, many of them signed up again. And so, I don't know, it's been an adventure, I'll tell you that. It really has. And I'm proud that we did it.
Friends of ours have served 5 and 7 tours. It's, as you said, it's really hard to come back. They kicked me out of the Air Force when I was 16. I was in Korea. My mother ratted me out when she found out where she was. Then I went in the Army. I've been a contractor ever since, like you are, but in different areas. It's hard to come back. It's easy to go over. You adjust to the culture. But you come back, within 48 hours, you're on an airplane with guys saying they're a big deal. They're marketing millions with technical coat hangers. They're trying to hit on the stewardess. I'm old, so I still say stewardess.
I want to express a chat that Paige Weeks, whose son has served in the Sadlands or Sandlands. She's asking, let's start with Rowdy Ricky Robinson. She's asking, let's talk about these thugs that are stomping on our flag. You know, Rowdy Ricky, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, the biggest problem I have with that is, you know me, I'm a big free speech guy. So, I mean, they're entitled to be a dumbass if that's what they want to do. But then that means that they're also entitled to have someone who's actually bled for that flag to come along and punch them right square in the face. Both of which would be fine with me. Just saying. But, I mean, really, if we're going to... The thing with me is it's the exact reverse of the whole situation with the Garland thing. If free speech is free speech is free speech, then we can't have any buts. Now, the argument is that stomping on a flag probably shouldn't be recognized as free speech. But unfortunately, the Supreme Court disagrees. So until that changes, I mean, I wouldn't do it, and I would beat the crap out of my children if they ever did it. But I can't really stop anybody else from doing it.
Observed that though Pamela Geller got all this heat, the stompers on the flag don't. An interesting observation of mine, Martin Luther King was as provocative as stirring up trouble a guy as he could be when he went into Jackson, Mississippi, and Yazoo, Mississippi, wherever it was. These are the ISIS, the jihadists, the Islamists, the Muslims are sworn to take over the world and cut my head off, and your head. So I don't think there's anything we can't do to them, certainly hold a private function near Stryker's home in Texas. Right on, Ricky.
Right on, Ricky. So, Stryker, what are your thoughts about all these thugs stumping on the American flag?
Well, you know, those terrorists literally passed right by my house. You know, they didn't have to go all the way to Garland to meet their maker, although short stay with the maker because, you know, I have to say those boys probably sadly went to hell. But, you know, I guess the best way that we can kind of sum all this up is that it's absolutely, it's an atrocity when anyone desecrates the United States flag, because so many have fought and bled and died and lost vision and hearing and limbs and brain matter, as well as lives. And, you know, the lives affected aren't just the soldiers themselves, but their families. You know, if you think about all the people that have served and paid with their life or limb, you know, our veterans hospitals, which the care at most veterans hospitals is deplorable, and they're not doing a whole lot about that. But it just goes back to mainstream media. Much of the mainstream media is very, very liberal. You know, don't correct this person. They came from the ghetto. They've had a hard life. They're entitled to act that way. Don't bother them. Oh, sure, they're stepping on the flag, but that's okay. It's just a flag, right? Yeah. Well, Mr. Rogers has a comment about that. Has Mr. Rogers popped his head up on this show lately?
No, go for it.
Go for it.
Oh my gosh. I thank you for having me back. It's always a pleasure to be back. Can you say communist?
The Mr.
Sure,
Rogers.
I knew you could. How about flag burner? Yeah, see, I know flag burner is a hard word because that word flag is next to another word. And, well, boys and girls, we probably shouldn't talk that way on this show. But, you know, I just want everybody to know that there's a lot of people in this country who did fight and die for our nation and for the freedom of many others. And, you know, boys and girls, it's very rare Mr. Rogers would use the word hell, but I'm going to use it now. And I have to say that these terrorists, they're going to have hell to pay. And these 72 virgins that they think they're going to get when they get that 2 in the chest and 1 in the head, well, there's not 72 virgins in hell, friend. Afraid not.
So I'm going to unzip my sweater now and take my sneakers off and change into my battle fatigues. So I just want everybody to know, it's a beautiful day in my neighborhood. But if you're a terrorist and you come into my neighborhood, it's not going to be such a beautiful day for you.
Bravo. Great job. Our chat room, everybody's laughing in there. We got all these people they're all saying, Stryker, maybe a comedy tour for you, career there.
Oh boy. Well, run, Rogers, run is all I can say. Sometimes he pops his head up. Sometimes he sounds like George H.W. Bush, too. He gets that 1,000 points of light thing going. But, the fact of the matter is it's, there's a lot of truth in the fact that, the mainstream media, they propagate one message, and then other media outlets that have a little more closer bend toward the truth, and then the actual truth, it comes out. But, there are hidden agendas, and any time you can put mainstream media in one city, such as New York, and you have them all down the street from each other, you can control a nation because they're all talking the same dribble, they're all looking at it the same way, they're all trained the same way. But in some instances, some of these people have butt for brains. And, it's like that shooting the other day, the alleged shooting in Baltimore, where I'm not going to mention the reporter's name because he thought he saw what he thought he saw. He literally thought he saw a police officer shoot one of the meisters there, running up and down the street. The guy was running away, and he thought, literally, he said he saw this police officer shoot this guy in the back. Well, then here comes this other little plantation lady out there saying, yeah, he shot that boy. That's what she called him. He shot that boy. And he didn't shoot anybody. He fell down, his weapon, the criminal's weapon discharged because he was running away from the cops. And, here they think they see something. Oh, she was just so adamant. And it was so funny to watch the end result because none of that happened. And so people are too quick to rush to judgment. And, wait for the autopsy reports. Wait for, justice to be done. Baltimore's got a big problem on their hands, but I know you should never ask Mr. Rogers a question, but I'm sure that I don't know if there's anybody listening to this show that believes that you ought to burn the flag, do us all a favor. Just turn your radio off because there's little or no hope for you. There's other networks out there. You must have found the wrong end of the dial.
In my 5 decades of law enforcement, to have a shooting victim, you need somebody with a bullet in him. I've always found that. Unbelievably.
Unless you use an ice bullet now. If you use an ice bullet, that's a little different.
Yeah. Unbelievably, we're going to get cut off like a light switch in 5 minutes, Backpack. Why don't you go around these 3 guys and wrap it up, could you?
Yeah, we want to thank you. We just got one call on the chat room. Area code 845. Would you like to go ahead?
No, it sounds like it came into a really great show, and I thank you all for having me here. And it was
thank you so much. You're always...
Yeah, and I emailed also. I emailed you, sir, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for calling. We got one other caller we're going to squeeze in. Area code 408. If you could go ahead and speak your mind. Area code 408.
Gosh, that's Rick.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Well, we had someone who was about to call in, but Rowdy Ricky, if you can tell us how everybody can find you out there in the internet land.
Well, there's several places you can find me, actually. I have a Facebook page. You can hit me up there. It's www.facebook.com/Rowdy Ricky Robinson. You can also find me on at _R_OKC. I have to admit I am on Twitter more now than Facebook. It just seems like it's a lot more interactive. Also, you can find show archive this.com just by searching K98talk.com. Also, our website, www.k98talk.com, always has something live playing. And then, of course, there is my network's website, which is still, it's there, but it's under construction. It's thesparkradionetwork.com. So those are pretty much all the different places you can find me.
Thank you so much for calling in, Rowdy Ricky. We're excited to work with you. Thank you. We do have time. One quick caller, area code 678, if you can speak your mind.
Paige Weeks?
Yeah, we'd love to hear your comments.
I also agree that I wish there were a law that you could not burn the American flag.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for your help.
Because I've got one hanging in my yard. I had to tie it to a tree because I could not put it close to the road because of these thugs that are walking up and down the street, and they will tear it down in the middle of the night, and there's not one thing I can do about it, not one.
What part of the world are you in, Paige?
Let's try South Georgia. I just moved here from Atlanta.
Send me an email, please. radio@magnifiedview.com.
Could you post that in the chat room and I'll copy and paste it, please?
Okay. I think if we have time.
Yeah, we'll get it in there.
We're getting in a crunch here.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, thank you.
We'll send you some suggestions on how you can eliminate the thuggery.
Right.
Thank you. And I'll send you my article that I have published in three different states on the Second Amendment.
Please do that, Paige.
Okay,
thank you
guys.
so much. Thank you. Have a great, God bless, and have a great weekend. And Stryker, we just got about 20 seconds, but Leading Edge Radio Network, if you want to say how people can find you.
Well, just go over to www.leadingedgeradionetwork.com, or you can even dial in by calling 401-283-6754. And we certainly appreciate all of our listeners. Appreciate you, Yoda and Backpack, having us on the show. God bless you guys and the listeners.
God bless you, and God bless America. It's been a pleasure. Wonderful, wonderful episode. Thank you so much, Yoda. What a show.
Thanks, one and all, Backpack. Thank our wonderful audience, without which we wouldn't exist. Well done, Backpack.
All right. Thank you so much, and we're signing off. Have a wonderful weekend.